For Sunday, January 8th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, it's tonight, the Wild Hog Supper kicking off the legislative session. A judge rules that illegal aliens can pay in-state tuition. And in Fulton County, some severe penalties for businesses. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this Sunday. It's a big one because the General Assembly kicks off tomorrow. We want to make a brief note of the weather. I would say that regardless of what happened, it looked to me like state and local governments were prepared. We had news conferences for everyone at all times. States seemed prepared. And I just had to ask, what happened to that fellow Charlie English from 2 years ago?
He's probably shivering somewhere watching television.
You can't really have a snow event without Charlie English.
He was the one that was fired, who was over the emergency
Well, I didn't want
plan.
to say that, but
Yeah.
just for people who follow that sort of thing, kind of strange without Charlie English. But again, I think what we ought to say here is that government at every level seemed prepared.
Mm-hmm. And I felt much more reassured by the woman who was making the statements from the Georgia Department of whatever is emergency.
Natalie Dale, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she actually should be an anchor on a television station somewhere here. I've never met her, but she does a good job. Mm-hmm. But the weather was a prelude to the opening of the General Assembly, and it was not to be deterred. Speaker Ralston said they will meet tomorrow. The Wild Hog Supper is tonight.
Regardless?
Regardless of the weather, because they're constitutionally mandated to show up and do it. And but I think our top story kind of came to us a little bit late, and that is the total vindication of my position of several years, and that of the late Harry Geisinger, a state representative from Roswell, that says that water in the Tennessee River is Georgia's water. And at that trial, is it a trial?
A hearing.
It is a trial.
In federal court.
And a special master is overseeing this case. He is going to make this recommendation to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, so it is a trial in
yeah.
U.S. District Court in Maine. That's the oddity of it. But at any rate, the special master whom you referenced said, what about the Tennessee River? That's Georgia's water too, right?
And he still wants
No,
them
he did not say it was Georgia's water.
Oh, he didn't?
But he did not say it was
said it was
Georgia's water.
available.
It's actually in Tennessee. I know that you've made a big deal out of this and you've wanted to
But the
start
census-
a war between the states.
Yes.
Specifically Georgia and Tennessee.
I do, yes.
But that's not what's going to happen. It is a mile over the border, past Georgia's border into Tennessee.
But the census of the survey was a mistake.
But the special master takes note of the fact that there's a lot of water sharing among and between states, all over the nation, and that this is an example that we ought to pursue. And that's what he asked the attorneys in the case to go back and negotiate.
Yeah, they're mediating right now, and he's asking them, Jeff's right, he's asking them to try to come to an agreement so then he can give a recommendation to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well,
Right.
and his job becomes so much easier.
Yes.
If we can stick the straw in the Tennessee River, and we can say that survey done in the late 1700s was a mistake, then we're good to go.
I don't think that ever happens that way, Dick. You're not going to be able to redraw state lines so that we can take water from Tennessee.
But there's court
I don't
precedent.
think that
There's
Tennessee is going to
precedent.
let that happen.
But there is
this
precedent.
could happen. And that is that we build a train, a rail line, high-speed rail from Chattanooga to Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in exchange for that straw.
Well,
And that's not going to happen either.
He's always liked boondoggles.
But I think
he's thinking that Donald Trump's infrastructure plan will build a train. Magically, this will be done.
We got to give them something.
That's not going to happen. But I do think that they can come to some accommodation because the water's being shared from Georgia to Florida to Alabama. So why not put Tennessee
Come on
in the
downhill
mix?
from Tennessee. Why not?
Yeah, in all seriousness, we don't know which way the special master is going to go, and while we're having a little fun with this today, the whole idea is to cap Georgia's water, which we do not want, and that would be devastating, especially to our agriculture industry. So this has very serious implications.
No, you're right, and I was heartened when I saw it. I said, because this has not been part of the discussion,
Right.
and for him to bring it up in federal court
Right.
is a major deal. And that Tennessee River is a big river.
There's a lot
more
more water in there. I think that 34,000 per cubic feet per second, I believe, about 10 times as much flow as you get from the Chattahoochee. That's a lot of water.
Well, anyway, it's a nice, interesting development and a story we've followed for a long time. Another story we've followed for a long time is the issue of in-state tuition at Georgia's public colleges and universities, and whether illegal aliens. But let's categorize it. Let's be a little kinder than that. Yes, they're illegal, but they were reared here.
Yes.
Educated here,
Yes.
graduating from Georgia high schools and so forth. Judge Gil Tucson, they're called dreamers by Obama.
Well, to be specific,
And they have a deferment.
they're called deferred action illegal immigrants, DACA. That's what the Obama administration said they were in 2012. This is what this narrow case is about. These DACA things. Not all of them are students. Some of them are.
Let's call them dreamers. That's,
You can call them whatever you want. They're illegal, and right now, current state policy, Georgia Region's policy, is that you have to pay out-of-state tuition, and they're barred from the top 5 colleges.
Yes,
Yes.
well, I mean, we're barring illegal immigrants, and I think that it doesn't apply actually to those schools that don't admit all students. This ruling doesn't apply to them. But the question really hinges on whether or not they are illegal or illegal. Under DACA, the judge
That's
ruled
right.
that they are not
legal.
illegal, that
Exactly.
they are legal.
That's right.
And therefore, they can charge, they should be
That's
charged
right.
in-state
That
tuition.
was what the
This is
judge
going to
ruled.
be appealed. Obviously,
It is
state's going to
appealed.
appeal.
It is appealed already.
Yeah, the regions have
so
already
nothing
said that.
changes. Nothing changes right now, except all eyes now look to Washington, to the next couple months with Attorney General Jeff Sessions, if he's confirmed. Sessions has said he wants to do away with this DACA exemption, so that could be a moot point
Well,
if this
it
moves
could
forward.
be, but I think it's well worth examining, and I think that Donald Trump will take a look at it, and there's no predicting what he will do about it and what he will direct his attorney general
said
to
he
do
would.
about
He
it.
said
Look,
he would
there's the
look at it.
widespread belief that what President Obama did was illegal with his executive order.
Right.
Courts have said so. And the reasons, they're in a tough spot, but they're following the law as written, not the executive order.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, aside from the legal ruling, there's a practical matter of whether or not you want to stop students from being able to pursue a post-secondary education after investing the state of Georgia and the taxpayers of the state of Georgia investing $80,000 to $100,000 into these children's education, which we have done K through 12.
The flip side of the coin, though, the flip side of that coin is, do you want people who have come here illegally jumping in front of the line of legal immigrants with student
They're
visas,
not
and let me
jumping
finish,
in line.
and citizens, and they're stealing slots from citizens.
That's
who
not
are
true.
legal. It is
this
true.
only applies,
You're-
again, the
that's
ruling
a myth.
only applies to those schools that don't accept all students.
You don't
That
know
accept
that.
all students.
You don't know that.
That's what it says.
Well, you don't
Phil,
know that.
And
That's what it
plus,
says.
I think it's in our own self-interest to continue to get these kids educated.
Well, you would let in everyone
Because-
from all over the world if you had your way.
Well,
I mean,
well, we do.
We do.
Well,
and that's part of
this
our.
is why we're
that's
having
part
this
of
is
what-
why we're having border security after January 20th. We're not going to do it after
right.
January 20th.
If you don't think we are, you need to go down to Georgia Tech's campus.
Oh, I've been there.
sometime.
I've been there.
The ruling, by the way, the issue is really, we've got to get out, but the issue is more symbolic than factual. And Phil and I are on the same page on this, but it's really not that big a deal. There aren't that many of them. It's a matter of principle that's being argued, I think. And
Well,
we
there
side
are
on-
many. There's
Well,
like
I don't know.
25,000, I think.
There are a lot of them. I don't know why you say that, but the point is that we are following current state law, and that's what the regents have been doing.
Well,
That's
and-
why
but
they're
the-
appealing.
but
Yeah, and the state law
immigration.
is wrong.
You're right. It could, because immigration is a federal issue, and so
No, it's both state and federal.
Well, look, people who are illegal are illegal. It's a
but
simple
they've been
matter.
declared not illegal.
They've been
Under
declared
DACA,
by
they're
one
legal.
president.
But
It's
they-
been
and
thoroughly
one judge,
repudiated
and
by
one
the courts.
judge, and one
We
judge.
got to
locally.
get out. We got to get out. I'm sorry. You know, this was supposed to be our preview of the legislature. We're going to have to adjust and adapt on the fly, and we'll do that because we're professionals. We understand that, okay?
Okay.
All right? When we come back, that promised preview of the General Assembly. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Now time for the Georgia Gang to get back on track. We've told you about water from the Tennessee River and about illegal aliens and their tuition at Georgia colleges, but the General Assembly has a full plate starting tomorrow, and we never know really what the surprise issues will be, but I think we have a pretty good handle based on the past week on what's going to be discussed. Among them is transit and transportation. Speaker David Ralston has appointed a panel. I think that's a first in my memory that the General Assembly, probably since the MARTA legislation in 1971 or something, the General Assembly is actually going to look at transit. And it's a business decision, isn't it, Phil?
Well, that's right. We're looking at several options. We passed the tax increase a couple years ago that had more money flowing into the spigot. You've got the State Road and Toll Authority, SRTA, that has special financing tools to do infrastructure and roads. They're going to be looking at that. And of course, you can go down the laundry list if you want to. We're going to be doing health care and we're going to be doing all
Well,
sorts
the
of
Senate
things.
has named its task force on health care,
Right.
with the assuming that Obamacare is replaced. That's going to delay this General Assembly. I mean, they really can't address
Right.
Medicaid.
It's not
and all
going to
that.
happen in
It's not gonna
17.
happen.
How do you
It's not gonna
replace Obamacare in 17?
Well,
It's not
you're
going to
not
happen.
gonna
Well, I know.
You're still going to address. You're still going to address Medicaid, Dick. You still have
That's
to.
what I'm
You have to
But-
address Medicaid.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well,
and we were going to have to
but
do
that's
that whether
gonna
there was Obamacare or not Obamacare, because rural hospitals are going by the wayside on a daily
And
basis
the bed
in the state
tax
of
has
Georgia.
to be renewed.
That's right.
I think the headline issue that probably is not the more serious. I think what we just discussed is the more serious stuff. The headline issue might be casino gambling, Phil.
Well, I think so. You had touched on it last week, and legislation is being written right now as we speak. I think it's an off-election year. If something's going to happen, it would be this year politically. What's interesting is, from what I'm hearing from sources, they're writing it for just one big Atlanta casino, the Big Enchilada.
I thought there were 6.
Well, let me finish.
Yeah.
They're trying to cut out the regionals, whether it's in Columbus or Augusta or Savannah, so that's not going to work. So I think you're going to see the smaller regional destination casinos with their army of lobbyists saying, wait a minute, we want to be included too. And remember, just for the viewers, we're dealing with a constitutional amendment. It's tough. You have to get 2/3 in both chambers of both parties. You're going to have to be bipartisan.
Oh,
The
but
governor didn't
it's-
have to sign it though, Jeff. You remember
But
that?
you know what? It's easier than having the legislators approve it directly, right? Because they can always say,
It's-
we handed it over to the
and let the people
citizens.
decide.
I didn't support it. What I supported was you being able to make a decision. So I think a constitutional amendment is always easier, and a referendum, handing a referendum to the voters, and that's what they're going to do.
Well-
Or that's what they could do. I don't know what they're going to
And
do.
if they do, I predict that the voters will approve it.
Another issue that we've got to look at came up relatively recently, and it kind of surprised me that there's an examination underway of changing the way the lottery funds are distributed.
Well,
that-
there was an audit. I mean, the legislature has asked for the audits of different departments, and so I think it just gave the pros and cons of how you do a particular
Yeah, but
Well,
you
operation.
no,
know
but I
what?
sense they
There's a
wanna change
connection
it.
between these two, right? The audit of how
The lottery.
the lottery and Hope funding and how tuition increases have increased and Hope funds haven't kept pace. And so then I think that the point at which you introduce this whole issue of gambling into there, they become connected.
Right.
There's no, I don't think it's a
That's a
coincidence.
very good point.
Right.
But the lottery right now pays out 65% of its proceeds to ticket buyers, right?
Right.
And they might want to change that,
Well,
adjust
but
that.
the audit showed that only 14% or so goes to administration, which was a lot lower than people suspected. And so I think most of the additional funding goes in the marketing of the lottery, and they may make some adjustments there. But
All right, let me adjust on the fly here. Let's talk a little bit about local news. I'm fascinated by Cobb County and Turner Field. I mean, here we are in the dread of winter. We're about as cold as it gets ever in Atlanta. And Mike Boyce, the new Cobb County Commission chairman, went out on a limb, and we're going to quote him. He said, "We are not going to fail on opening day." Those are words that can come back to haunt him.
Well,
but he's named a task force to try and handle opening day.
Yeah, I think that's his charge, and I think that's the charge of the Cobb County Commission. It's also the charge of neighboring Sandy Springs. We talked about last year about opening day. Those helicopters are going to be hovering and seeing how the traffic situation is going to be. You know what's going to happen. But they've had these meetings. A panel has been set up in Cobb County.
Bob Ott, the commissioner, is going to run that.
That's right.
And of course, then the question becomes, the staff is working on it. Now we've got a panel of politicians. Who's really in charge? I mean, I think it's a dangerous move in the sense that,
Well, they're going to have to be all on the same page.
Well,
sure.
and the Braves have certainly been in the driver's seat for this
And
whole
the Braves,
experience.
the Braves still have not finished unveiling their traffic plan. Let's hope they get that soon.
Yeah, all right. Again, our timing is off now, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what I think is one of the silliest stories of the week, and that's Fulton County punishing businesses who are trying to be protected from crime, right? It's a succinct way of saying it. We'll do that when we return.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You know, you learn a lot in the news business. You learn a lot just being an American citizen. For example, sliders. I thought sliders were hamburgers on small buns. And I thought maybe you go to Arby's and you order a slider.
What are they, baseball players?
Get a corned beef. No, a slider is a young criminal who slides into cars at gas stations, slides across the seat where the key is in the ignition and drives away.
Why is the key in the ignition at a gas station?
Well, in some cases, the motorist has done what I must admit I've done. Watching my gas pumping, I've left the key in the ignition. I'm standing by the car.
It's not a smart thing to do.
No.
If you can't stand by your car and pump gas without a criminal grabbing your car, we got a problem. So Fulton County has been discussing this, mainly because a couple of prominent people got hit. Former City Council President Marvin Arrington was, it's not a carjack, it's a slider. You got to learn all this stuff. And somebody slid into Queen Latifah's car. So the Fulton County Commission, to my absolute amazement, I'm just astonished. The Democrats on the Fulton County Commission voted to penalize the businesses where the crimes occur. And Phil, they're threatening their alcohol licenses. They're saying they've got to put in security cameras and huge expense.
You just said they've got to do something. To protect
yeah, you got to do
people.
something, but not that. Punishing.
Well, the businesses are paying for police protection.
Well, if you and I owned a gas station or convenience store that's in a high crime area, number one, we'd have to pay about $5,000 just to try to comply and keep our alcohol licenses. This is the wrong way to do it. We need more police protection, and I will say this: we need to stop bonding out these thugs. We need to do a better job of prosecuting.
Now you sound like
Many of them are gang members.
Kasim Reed has made this point.
And I agree.
Yes, he has.
I agree with the mayor on this, and I agree with everybody that we're bonding them out. We need to use the gang statute here in Georgia that's not being used by Fulton County prosecutors, and that will give a higher bond and keep these thugs out.
Well,
I
it
have a
is.
better
And Paul
idea.
Howard, the DA,
I've got a
said
great
it was a
idea.
revolving door.
When you're pumping your gas, lock your car. It's not that difficult.
But you
to
know
do.
what, Jeff? That
Take
doesn't
the
stop the
key,
crime.
put it in your
Jeff,
pocket,
you're
and lock your car.
You're standing at the pump 3 feet from your door, your car door.
And so you leave the key in the car, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I've got to go in and get some cough drops.
Well-
and you leave your key in the car, and your car is gone.
Well,
who's
if
this
you
shit?
leave your
I
car-
don't think that is
Yeah,
the
that-
responsibility of either the business owner and that's the responsibility of the car owner.
When we all stop at the Quick Trip on Briarcliff Road, if we're going in, we're probably going to lock our car. But if we're standing there watching the gas being pumped, we're not going to lock
The point
car.
of all of this is that we have to get these people off the street, Jeff.
I agree with
Right,
that,
yeah.
but I'm locking my car, Dick. I don't know what you're doing.
All right,
Right,
let's
taking the
speed
key,
through
too.
some other local news. Turner Field was the deal closed with Georgia State.
Right.
So we'll see what Georgia State does with that in terms of a mixed-use development and a football stadium. Underground seems to be delayed. I'm not sure whether that company from South Carolina is going to go through with that plan.
They needed a little more time, according to Mayor
They need a little
Reed.
time. They're holding a community meeting on January 14. They need a little time. I think the mayor's going to give them a little extension of time, and hopefully they can get it done. If not, I think that there's some people waiting in the wings.
And one other thing that I found interesting, maybe you all didn't, the mayor, in his typical kind of pugnacious fashion, wrote, I thought, a really interesting letter defending the idea of a lavish bridge leading to the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Folks there think it's a waste of money. I think it's budgeted at $12 million. It's clearly going to go over that. But I think the mayor's right. All of us have lived this. That downtown thing with the different elevations,
Right.
it's not united.
Yes.
And if you're going to do development in that community, what is it, those neighborhoods, the West End, I guess we
Vine
call
City.
it.
Western, Vine City, absolutely.
You've got to have some connector. And
You need to have some connectivity, and they need to be able to have some connectivity for people who live in those communities.
And it should
I
look
thought
nice.
I thought it was a well-done letter. Congratulate the mayor and his communication
That's what I'm
staff for
saying.
getting that out
That's
there.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. We're supposed to go to winners and losers, if you can believe that. I think we
time
are.
already.
We've messed that up before when we changed on the fly. We're going to do politics and winners and losers before we're out of here, I promise you. So just hang around and see which way it goes.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And before we go to winners and losers, let's talk a little politics. I guess the last major cabinet post for Donald Trump is Agriculture Secretary. It hasn't been filled yet. Sonny Perdue, the former governor of Georgia, was one of the first ones interviewed for that job. And he's kind of hanging out in the wind. It's interesting.
I think it was a good sign that he was brought in for a second interview, because the way President-elect Trump operates, if he's not satisfied with some of the applicants, he may go back and talk to the ones previously. So that's an interesting development.
The other thing is the Democrats on Capitol Hill have really promised a big fight on Tom Price, the Georgia congressman, for Health and Human Services. They're going to give him a full
They want to look into those investments that he's
yeah.
making.
Yes,
exactly.
possibly insider trading. I think they use that phrase.
Well,
They
you
can't
know,
prove
Phil-
anything. They can't prove it.
well, they got,
it's
first of all,
They've
they
gotta
got to prove
prove
it's
Still
wrong.
some ethical questions, though.
Well, they're going to raise all that.
They're
but
going to
what
raise a lot of smoke.
But what that does is it delays any election for Tom Price's successor in the 6th District. And it's interesting, the Democrats are more active than the Republicans. I think the Republican side of that is frozen until Karen Handel makes a decision whether she's going to run. I think she's going to run.
Well, I think
but
you'll see
out
an
of respect
announcement.
for Tom Price, she's not saying anything,
I think
right?
you'll see an announcement from Karen Handel this week that she will run for that 6th district, and then I think you'll probably see some other names come out too.
But in the meantime, there's action on the Democratic side where they have no chance whatever.
Right.
So you've got a fellow named John Ossoff, another fellow named Josh McLaurin, joining two former legislators, Ron Slotin and Sally Harrell, on the Democratic side. And what's interesting is this Ossoff fella thinks he can win in the 6th Congressional District of Georgia based on his association with John Lewis, which makes him so far to the left. I mean, you could say, hey, I'm just an everyday Democrat. But when you worked for John Lewis, those people in the 6th District are there because they didn't want to be in the 5th District
They
with
want to
John
get
Lewis.
some. They might
Right.
want to get some results
And you know what's
Right.
interesting?
august congressman like John Lewis.
Lewis, right.
Look what he did in that
does
sit-in,
comic
for
books. He
instance.
doesn't do
that sit-in
legislation.
was so effective that they had to go back, change the rules, and start finding members, which
All
is
right.
crazy.
I got to tell Alexis real quick that they're starting the Tom Price hearings before inauguration, so they're trying to get ahead of everything.
All right, we got to do winners and losers. Jeffrey, sorry, I caught you in mid-mouthful there.
Well, I'm going to say John Lewis, in large part because we did last we said we did our winners of the year, and he made a huge impact with that sit-in last year. So John Lewis is going to be one of them. Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Behaving badly, acting like a
Let me
4-year-old.
finish. Keisha Lance Bottoms for
such a
closing out
terrible
this deal at Turner
mischaracterization.
Field in a way that didn't cost taxpayers in Fulton and Atlanta a dime, and I think that she did a great job there. Heads off to Keisha Lance Bottoms. Keith Parker held State of the MARTA address on Friday and had some major news. One, they've got $250 million in reserves. This is MARTA, an institution that was supposed to go bankrupt. He's done a great job, and he announced a new light rail line in Southwest Atlanta.
I'm in full agreement with you about Keith Parker. All right, Alexis.
Okay, I'm going to go off the political trail a little bit and recognize William Taggart. He's a former head of Atlanta Life Financial Group, is now CEO and executive in residence at Morehouse College. He's going to be sworn in as the new chairman of the Atlanta Business League this month. And also on January 24th, the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival begins with a screening of Alone in Berlin, a World War II story based on true facts. And the festival goes on for 3 weeks and all over town, so it'll be a great movie watching.
All right, Phil.
You know, my loser was that South Fulton crime summit the other day. I'm glad they met, and I'm glad they want to deal with crime, but they're not dealing with the word gang we just mentioned a little earlier in the broadcast. We need to use a state has a tough gang statute, prosecution statute. Let's use it. And my winner of the week is my friend Ed Richardson. He's a producer with Atlanta Metro Studios. He's doing a film on A Good Man Is Hard to Find, the great Flannery O'Connor story. And so he's going to be shooting in Georgia on this film in 2017.
Great.
Good Man Is Hard to Find. There's an old joke in that title,
you can't say it.
which I can't say on this broadcast. So I'm going to make as my winner of the week the president of Talladega College in Alabama. It's a small private school. It's black by tradition, and the band's going to march in the inaugural parade. And the president says it's part of being in this great republic. We don't really care who's in the White House. It's all about the transfer of power. Good for him. And how about Georgia Tech? The basketball team upset North Carolina. Oh, that's sweet. Then they lost by 53 points to Duke. That's the bitter.
Wow.
The Falcons, next Saturday, right here on Fox 5. We'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.